One of the big things we heard over this weekend was the report about Shedeur Sanders, where it started with Ian Rappaport, a big, kind of exclusive, saying that the Browns are preparing for Shedeur to play at some point this year. I just quickly want to touch on the Mimegate thing, where I still think it's the most overplayed, ridiculous story, and the reaction to it on both sides were crazy to me. Like, there was just nothing measured about that conversation. It was just a lot of people yelling at each other online. The funniest conspiracy theory I had about it, though, was that Shedeur was taking the Browns literally. That the Browns told Shedeur, we don't want you talking about this. Just say no comment, or just say I'm happy for Dylan. And then that maybe he took them literally. So here's the verbiage in the Ian Rappaport piece. Sources say Sanders had a discussion with team officials that his approach to the media session was a message that got lost in translation. So basically, they said, don't say a word about it. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to pantomime talking. How can we not? That's funny. That is very, very funny.
It's funny. It's also funny that they got Rappaport to even report on that.
Yes.
That's the funnier side of things.
Well, and so every part about this was very much there was no way this wasn't leaked from the Browns.
Yeah.
Like, every part that you read about this screamed, it wasn't an agent, it wasn't, Shedeur himself, it wasn't Dion. It was clear that this was made from the Browns, and I do think that's what's interesting about this, is because I think any time the Browns leak any report about Shedeur, it ends up backfiring, even if it's a well-intentioned one like this, which is to tell Shedeur fans, hey, we're going to play your guy at some point this year. Just be patient.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of people think like myself. It's like, yeah, Jimmy Haslam already told us he was going to play this year. Like if you just listen to Jimmy Haslam, we'd have both quarterbacks be playing. I know in the past couple weeks, though, I became a little bit more hesitant to the idea that he actually would see the field, because there just became a part of me that wondered if they were just going to... I honestly didn't know that they'd move away from Flacco as early as they did, even though I kept telling everyone after 4 weeks is when they had to actually figure that out. I just didn't know that they'd actually do it. It's what I would do. I was surprised they actually did it. But with this, the part that got me was in this report... Rap Sheet talks about how his development is happening every day, and while we had a long way to go upon arriving as a fifth-round draft pick from Colorado, Sanders has worked and he's learned. They're trying to rewrite that initial narrative that was out there, that basically Shedeur is wasting everyone's time. And the only part that gets me a little angry is that you took a quarterback in the 5th round. You're going to tell everyone that he's just a 5th-round quarterback, and you're going to then try to get all the credit for how he looks once he plays. That's the part that bothers me the most. It's a sleight of hand that I knew was coming from a million miles away, and it's going to paint them to be the savior of this quarterback that didn't actually need saving.
It's also the Eric Andre shooting the gas and being like, who could do this? Like, oh, hey, we're going to try and rewrite that narrative that we ourselves...
we created.
Propagated.
The calls coming from inside the house, guys.
And here's the thing. They didn't create the pre-draft narrative. They created the post-draft narrative on Shedeur, which was insulting, trying to act like there was a massive difference between Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when both guys were incredibly experienced college quarterbacks. And Shedeur actually fits Kevin Stefanski better than even Dylan does.
It's one of the reasons why we first, at least I first started championing for Shedeur Sanders, is because he fits Stefanski and the connections that are there, even between his OC and everything else that was there at Colorado. But it is wild to me how they're going to try to spin this in such a way to make it seem like they fixed Shedeur Sanders, when I'm never going to look at it that way.
So I think you're right that if everyone survives to the end of the season and Shedeur plays well at the end of the season, and that gives them hope to maybe not draft a quarterback next year, and Shedeur maybe and Dylan, they compete for the job, however they kind of play out. I think your instincts are correct if they get there. I don't know after yesterday. I don't know Kevin's definitely going to make it to the end of the season. And I think that's going to be a really interesting development to see. If Kevin loses the locker room, do you give him the rest of the season? Or at some point, when you go to Shedeur, then maybe you give him Tommy Rees, which also allows Tommy Rees to audition for other jobs as well.
I'm okay with that if that happens.
I just don't. If you're like a Shedeur fan, I don't know how you can trust Kevin Stefanski play calling for Shedeur when I don't think think Kevin did any favors for Dillon Gabriel yesterday.
So maybe I looked at it too much from Stefanski's lens. I look at it from Stefanski's lens of that's my ace up my sleeve. Mm-hmm. That's my when I feel like I'm about to get fired. Sorry, Dillon Gabriel, you lost your job. Now here Shedeur comes in, and Shedeur because he's not a 5th round quarterback, guys. Let's get real. Shedeur's going to step in, and it'll look much better. Plus, you have that easy stretch up until that Buffalo game late in the season. You have a pretty easy stretch. The Browns could really have a quarterback go in there and look pretty decent. And I think he's going to look at that as like that's how I save my job.
Do you think that yesterday, because one of the big the next big push and pull is if Dillon is adequate, how long does that buy patience from fans if adequate isn't getting wins?
Oh, we had a caller last hour say they should have drafted Will Howard.
Yeah. And I mean, we had another caller we didn't end up getting to because we had so many calls in the early part of the show. Humble brag, what up? But that wanted to say, like, when are we going to put Shedeur in? Mm-hmm. I think that, like, most of the time when it comes to quarterbacks, if it's an incumbent quarterback, in this case it's a very short-term incumbent quarterback, most of the time you're really only calling for, if a guy's playing well but losing, you're really not calling for him if you're looking and being like, well, no one catches the passes, the offensive line's terrible, the play calling and the coaching decisions, game management isn't helping him, the defense has a great defensive line, but it's not a great defense from the back seven. Like, those are all things that incumbent quarterbacks get the benefit of the doubt of. I don't know how long fine while losing buys Dillon Gabriel, and I think that's why this felt a little premature. It's like, I don't know why you're trying to appeal to Shedeur fans who are pissed at you right now because they don't think you're treating that quarterback right. I don't know why you're trying to do that when I don't think you're going to see Shedeur for at least another 5 weeks, even if Dillon is worse than fine and you're losing.
And here's the part that they're not accounting for, though, because if Dillon does, in fact, play out the way that he did the first game, where you lose a lot and he's not really even threatening to go deep, he looks, I called it acceptable. If he looks like somewhere in that range, you then have to justify why you thought Dillon Gabriel was better than Shedeur.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is where the Kevin Stefanski rubber meets the road. I do wonder, one of the things we've said about Kevin consistently is he's just so stubborn. And there is a cockiness, nay, arrogance to him at points.
Could Haslam in this point, could Haslam just say your decision-making was so awful and thinking Dillon was better than Shedeur, I have to fire you based off of not only all the losing and everything associated with it, but that's also just a little notch on the belt there?
I mean, I think it might. So yes, to answer your question, because that's a straight-ahead question and fair to ask for a response, I also think it might be if you get 7 weeks in and Dillon never looks better than adequate and you're 0-7, and Kevin's still saying, we got to keep playing Dillon Gabriel because Shedeur's not ready. I don't know how I can trust. I don't trust Kevin Stefanski now to make that decision. I thought the entire handling of this process has been semi-insulting to Shedeur, and Semi is definitely couching it. It's been insulting to Shedeur. Just distinguishing between these two guys as if there's some wide gap between either guy is, if there is, physically, Shedeur is the far superior talented quarterback than Timu Tua. But like, you lose a lot of games with Kevin's handpicked quarterback. Again, it doesn't matter if because if you're losing and you're playing fine, we're just going to think you're a backup. We're going to think you're Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville. If Kevin continues to go, nah, we got to give Dillon a chance, or Shedeur's not ready, that in and of itself becomes a landmine for him.
Yeah, no, I just thought this was the first olive branch to the idea that they feel like they're coaching Shedeur up and the light bulb is going on for Shedeur and all the rhetoric that I just never really bought into, that Shedeur's light bulb needs to go off to begin with anyway, you know? But I feel like you have to start it from somewhere, right? You can't tell everybody. And they told everybody, because you got text, I got text, we got text all through training camp and all this other stuff, that Shedeur didn't know what the hell he was doing, etc. You can't tell everybody those type of messages and then continue to keep going down that road and then say, now he's our starting quarterback. You have to slowly but surely say, oh no, things are starting to happen. Shedeur looks really good. Hey, how about those extra periods that is going on after practice that Ross Tucker told us about? You think that was an accident a week ago? Or I'm sorry, 3 weeks ago, because I was off for 2 weeks. You think that was an accident? That wasn't an accident. Like they're starting to build up the narratives that it's starting to click for Shedeur. And I think it's very intentional, because ultimately they're going to want to take credit for it if Shedeur looks good.
Well, and here's the other thing. They got bailed out by the last preseason game. because one of the things that was so infuriating was them saying Shedeur is just so behind. He doesn't really, and then he was acing every opportunity in practice and in preseason until that last preseason game. And they were talking about how far ahead Dylan Gabriel was. He looked awful in practice, and he looked awful in the one preseason game he did play until that last game. Well, now you can't hide. Now you can't hide behind. No, when guys play, like you can hide behind, well, we're coaching up. You can hide behind, well, it's because of this, that, and the other. No. It's just, how did Dylan play? And eventually, it's just, how did Shedeur play? And so, God help you if Dylan looks adequate, fine, and they lose a bunch of games, and then you turn to Shedeur, and he comes alive in December and looks like the far better player. I don't think there's going to be a Browns fan that's going to buy this slow turn. They might buy it today. They certainly have bought it the last couple of weeks because of some of the messaging we've got from fans on Twitter. They're not going to buy it in December when you can actually see it in real time.
And they shouldn't. Again, maybe I'm just off base. Maybe I'll end up being the wrong one out of all this, and Shedeur was just so far behind, and they've been 100% honest to us the entire stretch of the way with Shedeur. Just don't believe it, guys. But we'll find out because Dylan's playing early enough that we're going to be able to find out.
216-474-0092. So when is the earliest we could see Shedeur Sanders? It was apparent that report yesterday was to try and calm people down who are mad at the way the Browns are treating Shedeur Sanders. Could have maybe just not done all the other theatrics earlier this year to try and pull the sleight of hand. Maybe could have just not done that. Could have been very up and up. But listen, who am I? Right? Who am I? Just using logic.